from best-selling author Micheal Lewis that tells the stories of the people who, very early on, recognized just how bad things were going to get and tried their best to warn the country. It's entitled The Premonition, a pandemic story, and Micheal joins us now. And Micheal, if you could expound upon this, it's a warning, your book, a premonition of a greater disaster yet to come the next time we allow a lack of leadership to really take hold of a problem as big as this. Explain.
Yeah, so it's a story of these three characters who, in a better world, would have actually been probably running the U.S. pandemic response. And what falls out of the story is as bad as Donald Trump was, and as much as he made the problem worse, that we were really institutionally just not prepared for the threat we faced when a pathogen appeared here. And the characters are like, it's ground up. It's like one of the major characters in the book is a local public health officer who's been fighting communicable disease for the last decade. And what she would tell you is that she learned a decade ago no one was coming to save her, and there wasn't a system. The structures weren't in place to deal with the threat we've been dealing with. But to me, like, the great takeaway of the stories these people tell is the consequences of absence of leadership. It's like to confront the threat that we faced required kind of courage at the top, and it was just not there.
Hey, Micheal, it's Willie. Congratulations on the book. You sort of paint a picture inside the pages of all this chaos at the top, all this chaos on the surface that we saw every day from the White House. Donald Trump talking about injecting fluorine, everything else he talked about. But below the surface, as you write about, these people who you call medical visionaries were actually doing the work sort of against the weight of the federal government. So who were they, and what exactly were they doing to move the ball forward?
Well, at the heart of the story is a group of doctors who had worked together either in the Bush White House or the Obama White House and stayed together in a sort of elusive, almost secretive group that called themselves the Wolverines. And they were placed somewhere in the federal government. A couple were in the Trump administration. But the one I focus on is essentially one of the two people who just basically invented the idea of pandemic planning in the Bush administration. And all this stuff we're going through with social distancing and finding responses before the vaccine to minimize loss of life grew out of that administration. I mean, there were no strategies before that. And these people, these doctors, first embedded their strategy in the CDC and kind of thought the CDC would lead the way in the event of a pandemic. And in January of last year, when they saw that that wasn't going to happen, that the CDC was going to follow and be at the mercy of the White House, they set about trying to coordinate a U.S. response through the governors. And one of the things that's just amazing to me, I mean, it's still breathtaking to me, is that you can map the U.S. response, state to state, onto the social relationships that these doctors had with governors or people near the governors. So the states that shut down quickly, California, probably saved a lot of lives by shutting down when it shut down. Wasn't as early as it should have, but saved a lot of lives. And it was because the Wolverines had a relationship with someone inside the state government, were able to kind of show them the severity of the problem in January. These people all had a bead on what was coming our way by January the 20th, and the country didn't respond with any kind of alarm for 4 weeks after that.
Micheal, there's some incredible people in here. Computer modeling expert Bob Glass and his 13-year-old daughter Lisa, who actually did a high school project on airborne viruses. Dr. Charity Dean, a California health officer who made predictions and was usually right based on her gut. She saw images on TV of Chinese officials welding shut apartment doors, knew this was going to be bad. You talk about Carter Mecker, a VA hospital supervisor who turned White House pandemic planner. They called him Scout because he was actually able to scout out and sniff out problems where other people weren't doing it. And then you say that these people, 6 weeks, these Wolverines, 6 weeks before President Trump declared a national emergency, Mecker wrote an email to the Wolverines, said, any way you cut it, this is going to be bad. The projected size of the outbreak already seems hard to believe. And this was at the same time that Donald Trump was saying that it was one person coming in from China, and soon that would be taken care of as well. They are predicting, doom, 500,000 people plus dead.
More if nothing is done. And what struck them, what alarmed them beyond belief was that they kind of expected the worst from Donald Trump. That was sort of a given in their minds. It was that the CDC didn't sort of bridle and say no, this is a problem, and that they took so long to ring the alarm bell. And what it pointed out, I think, was it's something deeper than Donald Trump, who of course, he was a catastrophe. But the deeper thing was just how politicized our institutions have become. You go back a couple of generations, and the CDC director was a career civil servant who had some protection and who was able to stand up to a president. And what we had in the CDC during the Trump administration was someone who was essentially a political toady, who was not informing the American people of the threat of a disease. This is the Center for Disease Control. They're supposed to be controlling disease, but was actually kind of in many ways obstructing my characters who were on the ground trying to save American lives. So it's a shocking story, but there's this other side of the story that I found just thrilling. It was absolutely exhilarating to write. These characters were superheroes, and it wasn't just, they saw it coming. It was, they were working so courageously in a broken system, and the things they did revealed to you the shape of the dysfunction in the system. You can sort of look at their experience as a pathology of what we've just been through. And you read the story and you say, well, I see what we need to fix now.
Jonathan Lemire.
Michael, congratulations on another book. Big fan here. Want to look forward, if we could, and what you're seeing from the Biden administration, which, of course, while dealing with this pandemic, knows that there'll be another down the road at some point, whether that's in years or decades. What are you seeing so far as to how they are preparing for what could come next? What are they doing? And perhaps more importantly, what should they be doing to get the nation ready for the next time?
It's a great question. And if you go to my three main characters and ask them what they make of what we're in now, they'll say, they kind of breathe a sigh of relief that they thought it could have been much worse. You take the same lethality, but it's killing children, or you take something like this and it's more lethal. You're looking at like social collapse. So their view is that, in a funny way, Mother Nature gave us a gift by waking us up. So the Biden administration, it's like, oh my God, all of a sudden there are people who are willing to manage the problem. Trump just walked away from it. He just ignored the one tool we had to deal with the problem, which was the federal government, and threw it to the states. So if I'm the Biden administration, I'm doing something bolder than just taking a better attitude towards it all. I'm looking at the structure of the government. I'm looking at, how do we create an institution in the Centers for Disease Control that can actually stand up to whoever happens to be in the White House. And I'm also looking at the fact that we actually don't have a public health system. It's 3,000 charity deans. It's 3,000 disconnected local people onto whom we thrust the problems, not just COVID. The stories of her dealing with tuberculosis and measles and hepatitis C, her job required more courage than any public servant should have to exhibit. No one should have to be as brave as Charity Dean was. And we need to find a way to make it sort of those jobs easier, more resources, more, and especially more top cover, like support from above. And I think the way you do that is you create a network so they support each other. You link all these people together, you give them better tools and information. You perhaps put them less at the mercy of the CDC, so there's not a single point of failure. But you create a network so that when you pull a lever at the federal level, something happens.
Mm-hmm. The new book is The Premonition, a pandemic story. Micheal Lewis, thank you very much for being on this morning. We really appreciate it. And as for